Back in 2013, high school Ren made it a goal to one day visit Japan. 10 years later, current Ren is about to make that dream a reality. Join me and this dude as we travel across Japan over the next 3 weeks that our friends have dubbed the Honeymoon. Being our first time going to Japan, we figured taking the golden route was pretty safe. That being Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka, with a couple extra stops along the way in the month of November. But every journey starts somewhere, and to say ours started rough would be an understatement. You see, originally our flight was supposed to leave around 2 p.m. Eastern and land just before 5 p.m. Japan time. That's about 13 or 14 hour flight. However, due to volcanic ash in the air, our flight was delayed by 2 hours. No big deal. We'll land at 7 p.m. and get to the hotel instead. Easy. A little sleep deprived, we got on the plane and took off. 13 hours till we land and hopefully we'll be out like a light. Except I couldn't sleep. And the plane took a slightly alternate path because of the aforementioned
volcanic ash.
And it ended up being a 17-hour flight. Yeah. When we finally landed and got off the plane, it was already 10 p.m. JST. Customs took us another hour to get through, and then a 30-minute train to Tokyo and to the hotel and to finally sleep. Except one last problem. We fucked up. Bad. I'm not entirely sure why we thought it was a good idea when we did it, but looking back, we were just plain stupid. You see, we booked everything in advance because of course we would. Except for day one. We watched hours of traveling guides saying capsule hotels were easy and cheap to stay in. So for whatever reason, we decided to find one on our first day in a foreign country instead of booking a place in advance. This might have worked if we landed at 5 p.m. like we thought we would. But now it's almost midnight, I've gotten roughly 2 hours of sleep over the last 2 days, and now we're wandering the streets of Tokyo looking for a place to stay. And let me tell you, trying to find a place to sleep at midnight in a country you hardly speak the language of is not easy. Every hotel we walked into was fully booked. We were constantly on the move, looking up places that could offer us a place to sleep, and walking there with all our baggage. Feeling the desperation kicking in, we started looking anywhere we could. We tried manga cafes, which didn't work out, and DVD stores, which let you have a private room to watch movies. That could have worked, except for the wall of porn reading us as soon as we stepped inside. Nothing seemed to be working, and I was even contemplating just finding karaoke bar to sleep in at this point. That's when Eric went for a Hail Mary. The Rainbow Hotel just around the corner. And, after 3 hours of aimlessly wandering around the streets of Tokyo, we finally managed to find a place to sleep, and we passed out immediately. After a rough first night, we're finally able to enjoy the trip, and thankfully, aside from one other hiccup, the rest was smooth sailing. But before we get to it, we need some breakfast. The classic sausage and egg McMuffin. Now, considering how things started, it never really hit me last night that we were here, in Japan. A whole different country. Until now. As I'm sitting here, enjoying my sandwich, it occurred to me that I could hear something that wasn't normal in Canada. McDonald's was playing anime music. This single, simple difference clicked in my brain, and I was excited and ready to go. Today's schedule consisted of 3 main things. Getting our rail pass tickets, taking the train to Kyoto, and convincing the group chat that we were still flying.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kyoto.
Our first stop of the trip was Kyoto. The former capital combines modern Japan with traditional Japan, creating a beautiful experience. Kyoto is famous for its temples and shrines, so most of our short time here was spent visiting any we could find. We decided with Fushimi Inari Shrine being our first place to go. The famous shrine sits atop a 233 meter tall mountain with 12,000 steps to climb and 10,000 torii gates to pass through. Probably the most cumbersome shrine we could have started with. The most apparent thing I came to terms with during this trek was my fat ass was not built for hiking up mountains. At least I managed to make it to the top and back down in one piece. But was it worth it? Kind of. If I were to come back here again, I'd only go to the halfway point, enjoy some ice cream, and take in the beautiful view of the city. Once we made it back down the mountain, we took the rest of the day easy. Still being jet lagged, I ended up passing out around 10 PM and woke up at 2. Since it was technically the middle of the night, I decided the most reasonable thing I could think of was go for a walk. After a couple of hours, I ended up finding myself at Kiyomizudera Temple in wandering southern Hiroshima. Being so early in the morning, I was able to enjoy the peacefulness of the area without the crowds of the tourists. The only downside was that it was so early the stalls were closed. Alas, our stay in Kyoto was already coming to an end, so it's time to get some food and meet up with Eric so we can go to the next stop. I wonder what he's up to right now.
Hey guys, welcome to my vlog. So let me give you a room tour. So that right there's a mug. That's my lemonade. There's the Vegeta. We over here. There's a bathroom.
Number 7 are reserved seats. Non-reserved seats are in northbound for Nagoya and will stop at Edo, Minamota, Gifu, and Nagoya.
The next part of the trip. Wait, hold on a sec. Remember the hiccup I mentioned earlier? Yeah, I messed up again. Before the trip, we grabbed JR passes, which gets you on any Shinkansen, and at the time, those were $550. With how much traveling we were doing, it was a no-brainer. But my dumbass lost mine after the first train gate. We weren't even on the train yet, and I lost it. In hindsight, I could have easily gone to the help desk, and they could have gotten it back for me. But I didn't, so from here on, I was paying for each train we got on. Our short time in Kyoto was followed by a one-night stay in Takayama. More specifically, the Yuki Murasaki Ryokan. Staying at a ryokan was one of our bucket list items for the trip, and man, we were pumped the moment we walked in. The traditional Japanese designed room with tatami mats and paper screen doors, complete with 2 private onsens. The stay also included yukatas, and of course, I needed a photo op. After nerding out a bit, we were brought down to the dining area and served a 5-course dinner that included fresh sashimi, which to my surprise, Eric even tried despite hating fish, and the best goddamn beef I've ever had in my life. I knew Wagyu was on a different level, but this was way better than I expected. Once we got back to our room, we were greeted by our futons made and laid out ready for us to go to sleep. But first, time to get in the onsen. After a while of boiling in the tub and having a few drinks, I could feel myself fading away, finally ready to beat the jet lag. Or so I thought. I got more sleep than the night before, but I still woke up at 4 AM. Lucky for me, that just meant more time to soak in the onsen before breakfast. Overall, this was one of the big highlights of the trip. This wasn't about being weeb going, "Oh my god, this is just like in my animes!" This was genuinely such a cool experience that I cannot recommend enough to do at least once if you're visiting Japan. I do wish we could stay at least another night, but at least we managed to explore the town a bit before heading off to Osaka. Finally, after spending a couple nights in Kyoto and one in Takayama, we decided to dedicate an entire week to the city known as Japan's kitchen, Osaka. The train ride to Osaka was also the last time I would see Eric until we got to Tokyo. Bye-bye. I know it seems a little weird, but we're two different people with different interests and we each want to go and do our own thing that the other didn't care for. For instance, one of the first things I did in Osaka was visit the Final Fantasy XIV cafe. I absolutely adored this place. The entire cafe was themed around Olda, with character murals, statues, and weapons everywhere. And of course, food and drinks based on jobs and bosses. The food itself was just okay, but you go to these kinds of places for the experience, and it was a fun experience. One thing I was unprepared for was the nightlife of the city here. You never really know what you'll encounter, like a random pop group performing outside the Don Quixote. One of the more random things I did here was go to the Cup Noodle Museum. This was okay. It definitely felt more like a kid's field trip kind of place than a tourist destination. In fact, I'm pretty sure there were kids on a field trip here while I was there. Needless to say, I felt a bit out of place and slightly confused. But at least I got my own custom cup ramen.
While Ren was busy watching kids beat their noodles, I was in Nara.
You were being a little whore. Okay, yeah, hang on. Stop it.
I found it underwhelming, to say the least. The pagoda was under construction, the deer were assholes, the souvenirs were expensive as fuck, and to top it off, it was raining the whole goddamn time.
No, don't, you're so wet.
Despite all that though, the town was very pretty, was lovely to walk around, and I met many people from all over the world.
Not on me. Thank you. I hate you. Take the one, yeah, sure, go ahead. Not two at once.
While Eric was busy playing with deer in the rain, I decided to check out Haruka's 300 in Osaka, also known as the tallest building in Japan. The cool thing about this monolithic superstructure is the fact that it doubles as an observatory. So obviously, I went to the very top. Being up there really puts the size of the city into perspective. They also had really tasty ice cream. After getting my feet back on the actual ground, I figured I'd take a visit to Osaka's biggest tourist attraction, Dotonbori. Two boardwalks separated by a river with tons of food and neon lights everywhere. It's definitely worth a visit, but make sure you go early in the day when it's not like a bunch of sardines trying to cram into the Krusty Krab. I also don't recommend trying to get food here as most of it is overpriced compared to a street or two over. That said, here's all the food I tried here anyways. After a week of exploring the captivating city and eating delicious food, it was finally time to move on from the big city and on to my favorite stop of the trip. Hiroshima was beautiful. It was also quieter and less busy than Osaka. We stayed here for 2 nights and this time we ended up securing capsule hotels. Well, kind of. The beds were still capsules, but we cheated and still had private-ish rooms. However, when I checked in, I ran into a situation I had never considered before. You see, I was born and raised in Canada, but my background is Filipino. For me, that means having a Spanish last name. As well, when I was born, my mom wanted to be different and pulled my name out of a book, which so happened to be a Japanese name. So, when checking in, the nice old lady thought I might have been Japanese and spoke to me in Japanese. I explained to her that I couldn't speak the language and she looked at my last name and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your last name. I didn't realize you were Spanish." I then had to explain I was actually Filipino. To my surprise, she tried speaking to me in Tagalog, to which I had to admit I couldn't actually speak that either. Feeling embarrassed, I sheepishly went to my room and went out for food. Given how calm and quiet Hiroshima was, it's hard to believe what happened here. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park, however, is a reminder of what was. The A-bomb dome remains standing here, in the state it was left at after the bombing. There's also a museum here, but I didn't take any photos or videos there because it just didn't feel right. From the moment I stepped inside, everything felt heavy. There were locals leaving with tears streaming down their eyes, and as I continued on, I understood why. Photos from before and after the blast, a bird's eye view of it all, and pieces of the aftermath all throughout the tour. It was hard to walk through it, but if you're interested in the history and seeing the perspective of war, it's worth the visit. The next day, I visited Hiroshima Castle, another historic relic of the past that was destroyed by the bomb, but rebuilt and now serves as the museum itself. Unfortunately, I went too early and couldn't go in though, but the walk around the castle was very pretty. After I took a ferry to Miyajima Island, the highlight of this entire trip. It was busier than Hiroshima itself and with shrines and deer everywhere. It was stunning. The big attraction here was the Itsukushima Shrine, a giant torii gate out in the water, and depending on what time you visit, the experience can be different. When I got here, it made for an incredible wallpaper. The island also had deer poop ice cream. I was pretty sure it was just chocolate bits on top, but I chose to eat it anyways, before this fucker tried to eat it too. Also located on Miyajima Island was an aquarium. All sorts of aquatic life here, including penguins marching down the hall, and a couple of good boys. When it was time to head back, I stopped by the torii gate again, and would you look at that? Earlier in the day, the gate stood out in the middle of the water, but now with the day winding down, it was now low tide, and people can walk right up to the gate. It's no wonder this was one of the most famous stops in Japan. Our time here was short, but memorable. But now it's time to move on to the final leg of our trip, back to where we started. From starting our journey on that cursed night in Tokyo to spending our entire last week here once again, we've finally come full circle. This time with more sleep and actual hotel rooms booked, which turned out to be the most expensive hotel rooms this whole trip because, fuck it, we ball. With Tokyo being the biggest tourist destination, there were tons of things I wanted to see and do, and with how big the city is, I knew it was going to be possible to do everything in a week. That being said, I did manage to check off most things on my list. The first thing on said list was to head to Kyoto to check out a big boy and a museum. At the time I didn't really care that much for Gundams, but I was coming here to check something else out anyways. It was pretty neat to see just how big it was, and apparently it transforms and lights up at night. Unfortunately I didn't get the chance to see it. Inside the mall behind the big boy also held a rather strange museum. A poop museum. I'm not sure why I keep going to these obscure and rather kid-focused museums, but at least it was different. The experience starts with you sitting on a toilet and pooping out your first souvenir, and walking in, you discover everything is just poop themed. A giant poop with a video playing over it, a kombini with poop-related snacks and drinks, poop video games, poop dinosaurs, flying poops, and glowing poop rooms for Instagram selfies. The only way to get out of the museum is to face a paralysis demon. Again, probably more of a take your kids to or have a cute date kind of place. Neither applies to me, but it was still fun. Speaking of dates though, it's finally time to meet up with Eric again. After not seeing this dude for over a week, we head over to the Pokemon Cafe. A lot busier, and way harder to book, than the Final Fantasy Cafe, since, well, you know, Pokemon. It was a very cute experience, and midway through, a Gengar came out and did a little jig. The cafe food was alright, but the rice came out in this cute little Snorlax bowl that I wish I bought. After we finished, Eric took me to the Tokyo Skytree, which also happened to have a Christmas market going on. I got some kararage, and those little bits of fried chicken might have been my favorite thing I ate this whole trip, and boy did I eat good this trip. Then we headed up the tower, snapped some pics of the city, and went to bed. The The next day I had dedicated to Akihabara, or better known as Weeb Heaven. It's full of anime and manga shops, arcades, cafes, and even more shops. I had no trouble spending the whole day here. First, I stopped by the other 14 cafe, then spent the rest of the day playing at the arcade, shopping, and eating a Magikarp and some barbecue. A few of the places I wanted to visit in Tokyo were locations from anime and video games. The first one being from an anime that always has a spot in my heart. Towel Hall from Your Lie in April, or Narima Culture Center in real life. I won't lie, I was a bit emotional just being here. Unfortunately, I couldn't go inside since the hall was closed for renovations, which somehow made it sadder.
Ah, you're back.
The next location was from Persona 5. While the game didn't make it one for one, they nailed the vibe of the back alleys here. The place the internet tells you to visit here as a P5 fan is called Rain on the Roof Cafe. It was a bit confusing because there were two shops right next to each other. One went upstairs and one went straight in. Turns out the cafe was upstairs. They served fancy coffee and cakes, and while it did resemble Joker's room above LeBlanc, it didn't feel quite right. In my opinion, the shop below felt more like it. It was missing the booth, but the layout was more spot on, the server was super charismatic, and they had the best curry. Afterwards, I walked around Ginza until I found a place that reminded me of my dad, and inadvertently made me miss home a bit. Nissan Crossing had some of Nissan's more interesting cars, from the 300Z to the current Z, and a crazy looking GTR concept car. It also had a nice vantage point of Seiko Clock Tower. Being known as the more expensive bougie area of Tokyo, there were some nice cars driving around Ginza as well, like this Lamborghini, and this wide-body EK hatchback Honda Civic. At this point, it's only been 3 days into the Tokyo section of the video, and it's already longer than everything else. Looking back at it now, I was trying to cram too much into every single day, to the point I don't actually remember visiting some of these places. According to my Google Photos album, I visited Asakusa, the big Tokyo shrine with giant lanterns, and apparently I went too early to visit any of the stalls around it. Honestly, the only thing I remember from here was waiting in line for a melon pan with matcha ice cream in it. Hey, look who I found again! Another spot I wanted to see was the staircase from Your Name, and to really sell the whole honeymoon bit, Eric and I wanted to recreate the photo together. But then we decided it would be funnier if Eric was actually both characters. After we split up again, I went out to get some sushi. As I'm eating and ordering more and more sushi, the local man next to me strikes up a conversation in English. We get to talking for a bit, and he introduces me to his friends next to him, and eventually he asks me how old I was. And for whatever reason, there was a voice in my head that said,
Answer in Japanese.
So I proudly put on my Duolingo practice into use and said, Niju roku desu. To which he responded with, Anata wa Nihongo o hanashimasu ne. It was at this moment that I realized that my 100 plus day streak on Duolingo failed to teach me how to actually listen. Needless to say, the rest of the conversation was in English. He also asked me if I knew what a crab rave was. Seeing the look of confusion on my face, he explained to me it was a bar where you spend time talking and drinking with the girl serving you. I realized he said cabaret, not crab rave. He then asked if I wanted to join him and his friends, to which I declined as my spending funds were quickly vanishing, and from my knowledge, these types of clubs were hard for foreigners to get into. The next day I went to Kabukicho. To most, the famous light-up torii gate which happens to lead to a more dangerous area of Tokyo. To me, and other Yakuza Like a Dragon nerds, this is Kiryu Kazuma's battleground. Nearby was also a 3D billboard that had me distracted for 30 minutes. Also, apparently I visited Tokyo Tower after that. No matter, all of this cramming is finally coming to a stop. It's the last day of the trip, and there's only two things I want to do. I spent the morning in Shibuya, mostly atop a Shibuya sky. The view from up here was gorgeous and slightly blinding, But really, I was just killing time while I waited for a bus so I could cross off one last big item on my list. This bus took me to Lake Kawaguchiko, a famous stop for a great view of Mount Fuji and also where an autumn festival was happening. After walking non-stop for almost 3 weeks, I thought walking from the bus station to the festival would be no problem. But as it turns out, my legs are now jello, my feet are full of blisters, and I was pissed off at myself for taking a 2-hour trek by foot. I was ready to call it quits halfway through when I turned around and saw this. A shot of Mount Fuji on a perfect and clear day with the sun setting. A photo so good, it's been my wallpaper ever since. Definitely made the walk worth it. I did eventually get to the festival, ate some gyoza, and relaxed in the atmosphere before heading back to Tokyo and then coming back home in the morning. Well, that's it. That's how Eric and I spent 3 weeks in Japan. How I spent 3 weeks living out the dreams of my younger self. It was more than anything I had ever expected, and I had a blast all throughout. Now, a part of life is learning from your mistakes and experiences, and this trip was no exception. If and when I come back to Japan, I now have more knowledge of what to do and what not to do. One of my biggest regrets from this trip is turning down the invite to the cabaret club. In hindsight, the man who invited me probably would have gotten me inside just by saying I was with them, and honestly, probably would have covered the cost for me. I also wish I didn't cram as many things as I did in a short time frame. I wish I spent more of that time just relaxing and taking everything in. And finally, the next time I go, I want to bring more people to experience this with. Whenever that happens.
Just wait, hey, what can you say? We were overdue, but it'll be over soon. You wait, hey, what can you say? We were overdue, but it'll be over soon. You wait, hey, what can you say? We were overdue, but it'll be over soon. You wait.